morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. Today we have one of my dearest and oldest friends, Wendy Schugar-Martin. She is the Director of Regulatory Affairs and Government and Public Policy with Progress Rail. So welcome to the show, Wendy.
Hey, Wendy, this feels like a family reunion. We're between the three of us, we're about a decade old worth of friendships, networking, environmental issues. So this is more like a family show today. So we're so glad to have you, Wendy Schugar.
Thank you. I know I feel like we're the some of the godparents of sustainability, that we've been in this sphere for so long.
And we've been women in this field for so long, before it was even talked about, where we were just having, little miniature cocktail hours ourselves regarding environmental and sustainability, meeting down in Manhattan Beach. Yeah, we were doing it.
Yeah, we were the nerds that would talk over, instead of talking about boys in life, we're talking about renewable energy. So Wendy, you are director with Progress Rail. They're doing amazing things. I saw some of the work they're doing at the ACT Expo a couple weeks ago. Could you just tell us, I mean, there's so much, so I know you can't tell us everything, but you guys are doing awesome things. So just kind of, if you can, share with us.
Sure. I'm obviously, I won't be breaking any news today, but Progress Rail is the rail division of Caterpillar. And we're really proud of the company's entire mission to sustainability. And it's not just what we're doing internally to reduce our carbon footprint, but it's also what we're doing for our customers. So as an original equipment manufacturer, many people know us as an OEM, we've been building locomotives for 100 years. And we helped pioneer the diesel electric locomotive. So when you look at battery electric, which is now part of our suite of locomotives we offer for sale, these are not a far stretch from what we've provided previously, because the diesel engine was used to generate electricity, and now we're using battery storage to generate electricity. So it's very exciting times at Progress Rail. The company has its roots in recycling, recycling steel from railroad operations, and using, we have a very sustainable history before sustainability was the cool thing to have on your reports. So we're very proud of that history, and I'm very proud to have joined the company at the end of last year and help them transition their customers into these new products. So part of what I do is help in the short term and the long term strategies associated with sustainable solutions. So it's not just about the locomotive. It's we also offer software that manages fuel performance in the locomotives. We offer uptime to reduce excess time, energy associated with moving freight. So we offer an entire suite of sustainable solutions to our customers so that freight. Now, let's talk about freight. Freight moves on rail at a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions than moving it by truck.
Yes.
40% of the ton miles of freight are moved by rail, and we are only 2% of the overall greenhouse gas emissions associated in the transportation sector. So not only are we already a sustainable way to move freight and passengers as well, obviously, but we're also looking to improve on that, right? So even though it's already sustainable, how can we make it even more sustainable? So it's very exciting times in rail. I've learned an enormous amount, which, for me is one of the greatest things I love to do is.
Oh, you're a constant learner. No, I've known that about you for 20 years. Now, I do have to ask about hydrogen, because I was kind of doing my homework. And you guys are doing a little bit with hydrogen as well. Can you elaborate on that one?
I can give you a little bit, just the public information, obviously. We have announced a demonstration project in California that would move freight from Southern California to Northern California on a hydrogen fuel cell powered locomotive. And that partnership is with Chevron and BNSF. And we're very, very excited about the opportunities. I know there's some interest in California. So we're interested to see how that program progresses.
Well, California is going to be the make or break it for anything, locomotive that has to do, with the ports or, transporting goods all up and down the Alameda corridor. That's where you're getting all of the pollution, the environmental justice, different things that are going on that are making legislators notice, making regulatory agencies notice. And I know you have a lot of experience dealing with those things, regulatory, especially in California, with the various other companies that you previously worked for and were able to get the job done. So that's pretty interesting stuff. And then when I think about just so that our viewers could kind of get an idea, what's the difference between an old school locomotive and the energy usage as opposed to one of your clean power vehicles or trains rather at Progress Rail?
Good question.
Well, so if you think, and I'm going to answer this sort of in a different way. So if you think back to trucks, right, on the highway, and why truckers went with natural gas as opposed to battery straight off the bat was because of energy density, right? And how dense the energy is in a variety of different fuels. Well, as battery technology continues to advance, and as they're able to get more and more energy storage in a cell, you'll start to see greater and greater opportunities for moving freight. Now you're starting to see more long haul trucks looking to switch to battery electric. The advantage on the rail, obviously, is that although we have weight restrictions per axle, right, and bridges have weight restrictions and whatever, weight is not the issue as much as not having 14,000 mile long train moving with half of that is batteries, right? So in some of our current projects that have been announced, a lot of them are supporting moving freight these shorter distances. We've announced in the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, Pacific Harbor Lines will be using one of our battery electric to switch freight, moving it in and around the port area. Just like your Prius or Tesla that has regenerative braking, right? So you have to take all these factors into consideration when you're thinking about these types of situations. And so, as we continue to monitor technology and see, we'll see how far we can get in the future. So
if I can just jump in, I wanted to add on to Joy's comment about the environmental justice, social justice. The reason this is so important, especially with what Progress Rail is doing with the renewable energy, clean energy, is historically they use diesel, and all freight use diesel, trucks use diesel, and that just rains down pollution and particulate matter that people were breathing in. And people who had to live nearby these areas were usually, less advantaged communities. And so you had long-term health issues, which we saw with COVID, with more people in those communities becoming sick. So we really do have to focus on not polluting just for the benefit of people, right, not just the environment, but for people. So what Progress is doing is they're kind of taking the bull by the horns and saying, we're not going to, pollute anymore. not just, for the benefit of the environment, but the benefit of people. So that's, Wendy, what I love. I've known you for 20 years, so I know that this is a passion of yours as well, is, the benefit of people. And side note, we have a guest that's watching from Algeria. So Nasruddin, thank you so much. This is awesome.
That's so cool.
Well, and I think that, right, so that's some of the advantage to a battery electric locomotive, right? The batteries are recharged through its reverse pantograph system. It's electricity, it's generated not right there. In switching operations, you tend to have, the state of California has talked about the density, right, in switching operations of particulate matter and NOx emissions, and disadvantaged and lower income communities that surround some of these neighborhoods will greatly benefit from a switch to electric, because not only are they zero tailpipe emission, but they're also quieter. And so the neighborhoods, right? So the neighborhoods,
wonderful.
Right. So
I don't think about that.
Right. So people don't think about the sound associated, but that they're not silent, obviously. There's still some sound associated with them, but these are the impacts, again, that are across a broad spectrum. It's not just, can we make a battery electric locomotive? Can we make it so that it works in a particular situation that really provides an advantage to the company that purchases it and to the community that lives around where it's being used?
Can I ask a question about magnets? Because I've been interviewing people about rail for a while, and I believe I love trains. This is nothing new to people. So a buddy of mine who I interviewed a couple of years ago, I believe, he came up with this magnetic Halbach array. I know I'm messing this up. Sorry, Robert. And it basically, he said, if I have a rail, I can push anything forward. So is magnetism something you guys are thinking about as well? Because again, I support diversification of energy, all forms, except petroleum. So is that something you would think about in the future?
Well, I'm not sure.
It's a relatively new thing, yeah.
Right. In the locomotive context of that, I'm not, and I have no idea about the technology associated with that. I'm not an engineer. Yeah. I don't know what they're working on. These are interesting concepts, and I know that California in particular, where you all are very interested in some of these other technologies, but unfortunately, I can't provide any insight into that.
Totally. I know I threw you a curveball on that one. I apologize, because no, I mean, there's just so many clean fuels out there and just so many new technologies being developed every day. It's kind of exciting to be in this world right now. But we do have a question from a LinkedIn user, if I may ask. It says, what if all rail is dedicated to freight? And I learned yesterday from Max, when I interviewed him, that actually quite a bit of American rail is dedicated to freight. We don't actually have enough passengers going by rail.
There is. So rail. So it was interesting when I was watching your previous train expert from the European Union, and he was talking about the rail in the European Union. In the United States, our rail is set up differently. The rail is mostly privately owned by companies who freight. But from our purposes, I think it's important to know that the more freight that we could get on the rail, the more freight will help us reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah. Because of not only, even with the diesel, our current, market leader diesel engines, one of them behind me, these move freight at 40%, at 3 to 4 times more fuel efficient than moving it by truck. Okay.
I believe that.
So if you look at it from that perspective, and if the same amount of freight would move for 75% less greenhouse gas emissions or thereabouts. Okay. So if we could move more freight onto the rail, it would help not only free up our roadways and congestion, but it would also reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. And again, it's a whole suite of things, right? We're dedicated to safety, so coming from the trucking world, drivers are safe drivers, but their interactions with other drivers, be them as they may. But on the rail, where it's a dedicated line, you won't have those interactions, right? So there is a huge opportunity for us to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So if you look at the spectrum of greenhouse gas emissions in the United States, transportation now exceeds our power generation, our energy generation sector. In a recent report that I saw from the DOE, they're saying about 33% of our greenhouse gas emissions comes from transportation sector. Now, if you remember, I said at the beginning, less than 2% of that comes from moving freight. Most of that is, medium, long haul, and light duty equipment. It's not cars. That's not part of that piece. This is really about moving freight. And so a very large portion is attributed to either medium, heavy duty, or the light duty. So like think of last mile. Think of your Amazon truck driver who's delivering your freight, delivering all your little packages to your house. So the more that we can reduce those pieces, will reduce the overall. So obviously the train can't pull up to your house, and we will still need those services. But the more that we can move the medium and heavy duty off the roads and into freight on the rail, the more we will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions as a nation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and also, the more freight we have off the roads, it'll clear up the congestion issues we have. And a lot of greenhouse gases are from sitting in traffic, your engines idling. Waiting, to just get to the next exit so you can get off the highway.
Recently on the 405 myself, and seeing a line of trucks heading east, out of, obviously out of the port. If some of our customers can take that extra capacity, it would really improve. But I also don't want to be remiss and say that we also do support passenger transit, commuter rail. So we, our locomotives are across the board in a variety of different situations. So again, you and I rode the train back and forth to ACT,
metro train,
the metro train in LA. It was nice. It was clean. It was efficient. It dropped us off almost, directly in front of the convention center from our hotel. It was, a block away from where we were staying. So, that was one of the other things that I took away from your conversation, was the availability of trains to really get into the hearts of cities, and be a part of, people's everyday commutes. I wish Florida had more robust commuter. I mean, funny story, when they first opened Marlins Stadium, the new Marlins Stadium, I was so excited because it was a little farther west and the Tri-Rail seemed to go directly there. And I was so excited, right? Because remember, in New York, we used to hop on the train and go to Shea Stadium, which is not Shea Stadium anymore. It's Citi Field, I think. Anyway, that's how old I am. Back in the day,
we all are.
Right? You could go to the racetrack. You could go to Belmont by the train. You could go to Washington, D.C., Boston. You could go to Hoboken and hang out with your friends, right? So there were all these fun, access points because train can get into those places. And I'm encouraged, but I have to tell you that the Tri-Rail did not go to the stadium. You had to get off Tri-Rail, get on a people mover, and then a shuttle bus.
Oh,
And so for all those city planners out there.
you know, you're absolutely right. Because I mean, the East Coast, they built around trains because that's pretty much the primary transport to get people around back then.
Yep.
Midwest was a little less taken care of. I mean, Chicago, Detroit are different, but I'm talking about, you know, Kansas. They didn't really have like those centralized rails. And then you get to the West Coast, everyone had cars, everything was spread out. So trying to fit the rail back
in.
is hard. I mean, LA Metro is really trying to connect everything, but it's a challenge.
It really is. You know, I would love to see it, especially like here in Florida, instead of putting in express lanes where they collect a toll, why not put a commuter line down that center lane of a highway, right? If you're going to take that real estate and use it for something, why not use it for something like a light rail?
Monorail.
You and your monorail.
We had an argument about this earlier.
No, it's not an argument. It's just
discussion.
It's cute. But I think that, people think of trains. I mean, I'm fascinated with trains, obviously, but, I mean, I lived in New York City where I didn't have a car for many, many years, and I never needed one because I could get everywhere. And the place that I couldn't get by subway, train, maybe the bus went instead, right? Or that one time that I wanted to go out to, the Hamptons or something, maybe I rented a car. But, that bringing that idea, a lot of people, they say, well, I don't want the train stop in my neighborhood. Yeah. Really? Well, let me tell you about Long Island. If you want to buy a house, the house gets more expensive as it gets closer to the train station. And that as it relates to property value, because people realize people want to live in a nice house with grass and trees and a yard. And they also want to be able to commute into the city and have the good paying jobs that are in the city. So, I think that there's something to be said, and that people should really look to New York and Chicago and think to themselves, well, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if I had a commuter rail, that it might actually increase my property value to be a little closer to a train station.
And especially since they're going to be clean energy, so they're not going to be belching out the diesel dust and the particulate matter. This is, and they're quieter.
Exactly. I mean, all in New York, everything was pretty much electrified, except when you got out to, the east end of Long Island, where it wasn't electrified anymore. But, again, that's the whole point, right? Let's use electricity. Let's try and figure out ways to create renewable electricity, low carbon capture, and really get away from, these high carbon fuels and things like that. To, I mean, look, they're not going to go away tomorrow, right?
No, everything takes time.
They're not going to go away tomorrow. But if I look from where we are today and where I was, say, dare I say, 20 years ago,
we were palling around New York after work, going to tortilla flats.
The awareness and education that has really come to the forefront, right? And how companies are really integrating these into, really the ways to do business, because not only is it better for our country, our environment, our world, our planet, right? Yeah. But, what I always say, right? It's the creating that efficiency also saves a company money.
And it always comes down to money. We talk about this all the time. Exactly. I mean, if it's not going to make you money or save you money, people have little interest. And fortunately, you guys have figured out, there is a cost-efficient way to do these things.
Yeah.
And a cost benefit.
Well, like I said to you, our roots are in recycling.
Yeah.
Right? So, so let me give you an example, right? If I build a brand new locomotive, it will take 100 tons of steel, producing 177 tons of CO2. However, if I repower the existing locomotive, that number drops to 31.86 tons of CO2.
That's amazing.
Right? So again, there are sustainable solutions that can be implemented across the board. No one's asking you to give up that locomotive, right? That's a repower actually behind me. That pretty little train there. So no one's asking you to give up your locomotive. What we're asking you to do is just make it a little cleaner, right? Yeah. So that's an 82% reduction in CO2.
It's amazing.
2%, right? So again, like we are thinking in that direction, right? How can we do it the best way possible and the most sustainable way possible to minimize the impact on our customer's business and support our customer in whatever their goals are?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm very excited to be part
well,
of
you're also thinking full circle. You're thinking about everybody involved, every aspect. I love the fact you've been recycling for so long, because most people think, oh, it's cheaper to do it new. Well, long term, it's not cheaper. It's actually cheaper to recycle and, to use it that way. So I've been hogging you. Joy, do you have any questions?
No, just very interesting stuff. And I look forward to, I do a lot of work in the port area and have a couple clients, in the corridor, and really interested to see how, regulatory wise, you guys have found the solution to many of the environmental problems that we're seeing in these areas. So I'm super excited.
I am very excited. Yeah.
I think that, if you remember way back when I used to come to California all the time, California tends to, I guess this year's no different. They've already announced this like multi-billion-dollar budget excess that they're looking. There's some emission problems in California, right? Geography is not kind to the impacts of pollution, right?
Right.
Geography plays a role in that. So, but of course, it makes it a much favorable environment. I'm excited to see the rest of the country and the impacts from the bipartisan infrastructure law and how that will start to transform our energy use across the country with so much, impact from that law. So, but yeah, I'll be in California.
And long overdue. We've needed to fix our infrastructure for a while. So I'm grateful you guys are on that.
Yes.
I'll add tonight, when you guys do your hydrogen train in California, can I hop on to take a ride? You're like, shut up, Wendy.
So just unlike trucks, trains take locomotives take a little time to manufacture. So it won't be tomorrow, just so you know. But in the very near future, I hope everyone wants to ride on a hydrogen train or battery electric or whatever the next great idea is that the energy wizards figure out, right? I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller, but I am very, very excited at the momentum around the country. So
yeah, and let's not forget the magnets. We have a LinkedIn user, if I can only guess who this is Caterpillar can make billions with Focus Magnetics maglev for people-only transport, and all rail can be dedicated to rail. And all freight can be dedicated to rails. I think what that meant to say. Yeah. And there's change.
It would take a lot of energy, maybe, to those magnets to hold up the freight. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a technology I know very little about.
What you need to do is you need to find a guest that we can all listen to. Who
Well, I sent him to you. I actually sent it to you a couple of weeks ago. The
okay.
this guy.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's got a lot of updates. Yeah. Well, no, he's got a lot. I mean, he and I spoke like a year and a half ago. I am sure that he's gone from here to like here in that year, just because people smarter than me. These engineers are awesome. They're constantly evolving, constantly developing. And that's what I love about engineering. These guys are constantly thinking of new resolutions to our problems, which is great. And
I'm surrounded by engineers every day, and I'm in awe.
Oh yeah.
So.
No, engineers are awesome. So on that, our mutual love for engineers. I thank you, Wendy, for joining us today. I thank Progress Rail for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
This has been awesome, very enlightening, and I'm really looking forward to the new developments you guys are coming up with, because it's going to be fantastic.
Great.
So,
thanks so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Take care. And if you want to learn more about trains, just go to the YouTube page. It's all there. Talk to you later. Bye.